Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Rugby with Pads. I'm your host, Sam, and I've been gone a little while. I'm sorry, is where I'm going to start with today. I'm sorry I haven't been around for a little while. I think I last released an episode nearly a month ago, but with the rigors of Christmas, family life, work life, and everything between, fitting my passion project in has not been a priority, unfortunately. I wish it could have been. I really wish it could have been, because there's so much to talk about, and there has been so much to talk about that I feel like I haven't been doing you guys who listen justice, and I'm sorry for that. So today is a bit of a makeup session. I'm sorry about that. Obviously, we are recording coming into week 18. Last time you heard from me, I gave you some advice for your week 14 and 15 matchups. We did okay on that. I won't go back in history because it's long gone. And by now, for most of you, your fantasy seasons will have finished. If they haven't, why? Did we not talk about this at the start of the season? Do not play in week 18. If there is a commissioner out there letting you play week 18, I don't know, they'd be hanged, drawn, and quartered probably. Week 18 sucks, and that's going to be a big part of this episode. We are going to do a bit of a season recap on some of the leagues and what's going to happen to them, what's going to happen to the pod. But yeah, we'll try and give a little bit of advice on week 18, although why bother? And I think that's very much the feeling across the NFL as well for week 18. It's why bother? Most of I think there is 3 or 4, maybe 5 positions up for grabs. I think most of them have been decided and locked in already. People are resting starters, and well, let's get straight into it. This is why you don't play week 18. And you know what? I'm going to admit something. I got tricked into playing in week 18. I am in the final of a competition that was hosted by another podcast. I was invited to. I was like, yeah, great. I did great all season. Won my semi-final matchup. Didn't realise it was a double-header final in week 17 and week 18. These guys are not a fantasy podcast. Maybe they didn't know. Maybe they just thought, let's extend the season a little bit longer and have a bit more fun. I am not having fun. I have so many starters that aren't playing. So let's take a look at the state of the NFL here. Baltimore already locked up the AFC. They have come out and openly said they're resting their starters. The Browns, they're doing the same. KC have locked up the number 3 seed. They can't move up, can't move down. 49ers have locked up the NFC. The Rams have already stated they're coming out and resting a load of guys. They haven't locked up the exact position, but there's no point getting yourself injured. That's what got us into difficult waters a couple of years ago. There's probably going to be limited snaps for the Eagles and Cowboys, who are already in, but it's depending on whether they're going to win the NFC East or not, get home games, etc. But they're against the Giants and Commanders, respectively. So you can imagine some of their stars are going to only get certain snaps. And everyone else is a case of, well, is there really much to play for? Out of contention, we've got the Broncos, the Bengals, the Raiders, the Jets, the Titans, the Chargers, the Bears, the Giants, the Commanders, the Cardinals, the Panthers. None of these guys have anything to play for except a better draft pick. And why would they go after it? This is why week 18 kind of sucks. And it's the black sheep of the family a little bit. It was always week 17 was the case, but when we had less playoff positions, it was a little less to play for as well. So maybe it's got a little better. Realistically, there's only a few teams with something to play for. Outside of Pride, you've got the Jags, who, with a win, I believe they win the AFC South, so they're going to go after it. But they've got injuries aplenty. Are they going to bring back Trevor Lawrence for this game? Don't know. You've got the Bills, who obviously I think it's winning in, and they could go as high as the 2nd seed, but as low as but they could lower us out potentially, depending on what else is happening. They're already in. The Dolphins are already in the mix, and they've locked up a playoff spot. But they could drastically improve their chances of getting a favourable game in the next round, and probably put some things to bed by winning this game. So we'll have to see what happens there. Got the Colts. Obviously, I think they're winning in. Likewise, everyone else in the AFC South, I think it's a case of winning in because they're all playing each other. You've got the Bucks, the Packers, the Texans, Steelers. I think all have a realistic chance of winning in. Whereas you've got the Seahawks and Saints as well, maybe less chance. I think they're sitting around about that 50% mark. The Vikings and Falcons are sitting below that 50% mark of winning in. So such a minute chance. I'm avoiding them. So realistically, who have we lost? And I went through this exercise because I was trying to find players that I could recommend this week, and I couldn't. And I thought it was easier to say who have we lost, because the guys that you've been relying on all season are gratefully getting a rest, and we want to see them play. This is the time of year where we can actually go and enjoy football for football's sake, unless you're in a DFS league or that, or yeah, let's not get into that. But we can just enjoy football for being pure football, and we have the 14 best teams going into a knockout format in the playoffs. It's great, and we get to see all these players play rather than just rely on their fantasy. Now, so are they going to get a pass for negative yards to get 0.9 or something like that? Those are the things we care about in PPR in season, less so in the playoffs. But we are losing, my MVP my MVP Lamar, Gus, Hill, Mitchell, Zay Flowers, OBJ, Isaiah Likely, the Baltimore D, huge contributor to many fantasy titles here. Flacco, Amari Cooper, Njoku, Ford, the Browns D, and again, another contributing factor. Mahomes, Kelsey, Pacheco, Purdy, CMC, Ayuk, Debo, Kittle, Stafford. Most of the NFC West players are valuable. Cup, Puka, Tutu, maybe not so. Kyron Williams, Higbee, Hurts for limited slaps, probably Pollard limited slaps, AJ Brown limited slaps, Swift, CD Lamb, Dak, Ferguson, all probably limited on snaps, but depending on how the games go. Cortland Sutton, surprised, decent, but he's really got nothing to play for. He doesn't want to get injured. He's looking for a new contract potentially. Javonte Williams, again, nothing to play for. They're doing some weird stuff over there in Broncos country. Let's not ride anymore. In the Bengals land, you've got Chase and Mixon, probably not really going to be up for injuring themselves this late on the season, especially with uncertainty going into next. Likewise, Higgins is contract year as well. You're not going to see much from him. Devontae Adams, nothing to play for. Breece Hall, he's on the Jets. Of course, he's got nothing to play for. Henry, Keenan, Eckler, all wanting to avoid injury. Fields wanting to avoid injury, and quarterback controversy over there. Don't know what they're going to be doing. We're now with the first number one overall pick next year. Saquon Barkley, Brian Robinson, Scary Terry, Bijan, Pitts, London, and Jay Jettis. We're avoiding them all. And you think, how can you even create a team from that? And you can't. I've gone over the teams that I own and I run, because some of them, like in the Zombie League, for example, which we'll get onto in a minute, we run the league until the 8-week 18, because that's what Sleeper allows you to do, and you can see what happens. And not in any of my leagues can I make a full squad. It's that bad. So who's actually playing and who's actually going to be valuable except for backups? Am I really going to go and pick up? I can't even think of the backups. Lamar's backup is it Huntley still? I don't know, but am I going to pick up him? Probably not, because he's not got throwing to anyone of any worth. So who's actually playing? It's only worthwhile if you've got for quarterbacks. If you've got Josh Allen or Tua, they're going to play some downs depending on what happens. They could be cut out early. You never know what happens there. A.K.A. and Hill. You probably want Tyreek. That is, you want to probably something his. He's going after a record for 2,000 yards, so probably still worthwhile. But if you had all those guys, you're looking at a very, very top end there. Baker's worth a shout. Mike Evans, White, and Godwin. I'm just naming the players who are actually playing here. Jordan Love and Jalen Reed. Potentially, Stroud had a poor display last week, but expect him to get cooking this week. It's slim pickings, and I don't want to talk about Mason Rudolph being icky. Yeah, he can probably throw some decent spirals to Pickens, but you never know. And he could go mad again. It's one of those weird ones. This is why we don't play in week 18. There's too much luck, too much. I'm not even going to finish a list here. I'm not going to go down the Seahawks route and who's going to play, or is Derek Carr going to throw to someone? He's going to heave it about, but we don't know who to. This is why we don't play week 18. There is too much uncertainty when you're building a roster throughout the year to have it all ripped apart. And if you can't make a squad, what are you going to do? Submit the title? You should not have your fantasy season relied on week 18. If you want to play double headers going into the playoffs, start it in week 14. Go a week 14 game, 15, 16, and a 17 game, or something like that, or 14, 15, 16, 17. However you want to do it. Start the prep playoffs earlier. And I've seen a lot of information about that and how a lot of leagues are taking that on. Not something that I'm looking to do in any of my leagues, but yeah, just don't play in week 18. And I am ashamed to say I was duped into playing week 18. It's not a choice I would have made had I wanted to. But that's if you're playing. If you know what I should say at the start here, you should fast forward the first 10 minutes if you're not playing week 18, and let's look at what happened. And this year was really fun. Just in general for playing fantasy, I played a very different brand of fantasy football, and spoiler alert, I didn't win any titles. I know you guys have hopefully been invested in me in my journey. Our first ever episode was talking about the first title I'd won, and in year one, I won the home league title, which was great, and a couple of other things as well. This year, I haven't emulated that success, and I put it down to my wife asked me the other day, why do you think that is? And I think it's a different style of playing. I've been experimenting with loads of different leagues, and I think once again I need to cut down on the number of leagues I'm in. Always the case. We always say it every year. I won't do that, and then you find another. But I think it's a case of honing what I want to do, and I've been trying new stuff, and that's the big thing. So a lot of the leagues I've been in have been either experimental first year leagues, trying something different, or I'm trying to be a better commissioner. And funnily enough, being a really good commissioner takes a lot of work. And I've laid some foundations in a couple of my leagues, which I want to talk about here. And I'll put some links into the kind of outputs below, and how we go about doing this. So let's do a quick rundown of the leagues that I was in. Now, the one that was the big win for me last year was my home league, my league of record, best league by far. And it's an NFL hosted league. We've been doing it for probably 8 years now. I did not win it, and I didn't even do particularly well. In the regular season, I ended up 3-11. It was a horrible league for me this year, and I was not happy with it. 3-11, I think wasn't as bad as all that. If I look at the kind of true coach scoring and what have you, and a breakdown and all of that fun stuff, I would have beaten more people than I did by a considerable margin. I was not the worst team out there. I just got unlucky with who I was playing. There was several weeks where I didn't win, and the only person who could have beaten me was the person who had beat me. I made some bad decisions. My keeper was injured for a huge amount of time, and that just kind of kept me off balance a little bit. But I did have some interesting things to take out of there. I've got Kyron Williams coming in for the next season as my keeper. That's probably a safe bet. I went Justin Fields, and then I went 0 QB. I didn't have a backup on that, and that failed me miserably because he was so inconsistent early on. Helped me do well in the end. And in the playoffs, there was a toilet bowl on our side in week 17, and I did come out victorious. So I only came 9th. I have the 102 next year. Still not great, not gonna lie, but it's something that I will work on. And no one's ever gone back to back in this league. We have got a second 2-time winner, so congratulations to Tom. I'm going to be winging the trophy over to you in short order. But it was a very competitive season. Now, normally we have one team who really runs away with it. But there was lots of 9 and 5s. There was 3 teams stuck on 9 and 5s, and 4 teams stuck on 8 and 6. You could, which meant you had to sneak into the playoffs. You had to be 6 and 8, which normally we have a much worse losing record to sneak into the playoffs. So it was much more consistent. Everyone took chunks out of each other. I had the worst. My against record, my number of points that were scored, was the second worst in the league, and my points for wasn't great either, to be fair, but I should have done better either way. With a lineup that started out with Justin Fields, I had Jahmyr Gibbs from the start, who didn't have a great start to life. Joe Mixon did disappointed. I've had a cast of misfits throughout, and I've traded some people away. I traded for Devontae Adams at one point, and then he started being rubbish. So it was a difficult position to be in. And I was drafting from the 10 slot. I think I got I think I had Nick Chubb early on as well, which really sucked. So yeah, injuries. I think it was never destined to be a repeat in that league. But congratulations to Tom. We haven't had a repeat on that, as I said, but I am looking to come back and become the third double winner on this league. So watch out, and hopefully this next year will be a much better position. John, unfortunately, just lost out on the last. It was a disappointing game for him in the end. He was over from America, and we were joined up, and I had the trophy ready to give it to him, and I had to take it away, give it to someone else in the UK because he didn't quite live up to billing. But that league, bit disappointing, and as a redraft league with a single keeper, you think you're going to have more flexibility year on year, but really it's just more opportunity to make mistakes. But somewhere I don't think I made as many mistakes is our Dynasty League. Our Dynasty League was great this year. It was a real mixed bag. And again, I think the story of this is I just suffered from competition. And tough competition as well. Our division is split into two, and my goodness, this is really interesting looking at the stats here. So we have an Eastern Conference of people mainly out of the UK, and a Western Conference mainly out of people in the US. The Eastern Conference won 66% of their matchups. The Western Conference won 33% of their matchups. So you can see there was a big divide there. To get into the playoffs in the Western Conference, because we have 3 from each, you needed to have 5 and 9. I landed up with 8 and 6 and missed out narrowly by 50 points, 50 points for. And I ended up having the second worst by, no joke, less than 0.4 points. That's crazy. Ed, who went and won it, so spoiler alert, he had the most points against, but he was incredibly dominant and had a really good run through the playoffs. He was 8 and 6 as well. So it was a really tight competition. It was on a coin flip. I think out of me and him, whoever got into the playoffs probably would have won. And if I were to map it out, yeah, that would have been the case. I ended up coming 7th, winning out on my playoff run, on my toilet bowl run, so avoiding the dreaded toilet bowl for the second year in a row. Alex takes that unfortunate accolade this year. But I think there's some really interesting lineups coming in. We had a new player in as well, who I competed against at the last. He took over a team that was in squalor, and he came last in the regular season, but ended up coming 8th in the postseason. But Ed beat out Kristen in the final game of the season. I don't think he traded for anyone at the last. I think Kristen did trade away some future assets, and I know Tim, who dominated the regular season and will probably continue to do so next year as well, he traded for some assets late down the line. I traded him away Mixon, so I've got some more draft picks, which I'm doing the Rams reload kind of thing. So we'll have to see what happens in that league, but really excited to see that league roll over. And it's getting to that point. It's already draft season, isn't it? No, not quite. But I want it to be sooner rather than later, and I'm trying to do every effort to bring the season forward as I can. We also had the second year of my beginners league. It's a league that I started for beginners a couple of years ago at the start of the podcast. Originally we had 8 people. This year we had 14 people, which was great. We had new members from across the board. We had some newbies in. My brother came in. Another couple of brothers from somewhere else came in as well. All of those guys. So we had 2 sets of brothers, 5 in all, coming in, and we had a couple of other friends and family members, etc., including, I think it was 5 newbies in total, 5 newbies and 1 additional veteran player. And unfortunately, it wasn't a newbie who won it. We did have a newbie go deep into the playoffs, which was really good for them. But we didn't have any winners from that side. Most of the newbies did kind of end up in a consolation bracket, but it's a learners league, and it's a learners league with some people who want to compete. But congratulations to Jack, who came second in the regular season. He had a very consistent lineup, and unfortunately, it was a really drab final, and his opposition, Boz, unfortunately had 2 goose eggs in the final. I just can't remember who he had exactly. Let's take a quick look, shall we, in the week 17 game here. But he had Oh yeah, that was right. Jahan Dotson and Cole Komet putting up goose eggs, which opened up the door to a just narrow 10-point victory. I think Boz would have been on track to win had they, done something. But is what it is, and I don't think Boz could have chosen a better team because he had so many people out injured. Again, this is the risk when you're playing these games late. Maybe we should resolve leagues in week 16 and make it better. I ended up coming third in that league. I was really happy and beat a long-standing rival and friend of the pod, Dan, in the third place matchup. But if second is the first loser, third's even worse. So it's not really something to to write home about. Not a great performance all round. And and actually no, I snuck into the playoffs after having a very hard draft position. I drafted from 14th in this one, so I was really happy with the results overall. But and the league was really fun, so I will be rolling that on again. We've already launched out the request to Jack for a new name. Every year this gets name new. I won it last year, named it League of Collusionary Gentlemen. The year before it was New Beginnings, because it was New Beginnings. This year Jack will have naming rights, so whether he goes down the Vane route, could do, or whether he goes down a more comedic route that makes people embarrassed to open their phones, we'll have to see. But that league will continue. We are going to open it up to at least 2 more people, make it a 16-man. If it goes any beyond that, we will have multiple divisions and it will become its own thing. And it's just a breeding ground for people to join in. And one of the guys who joined in on our Dynasty League was actually started this year. And no, I lie. He was with us last year, but he is, only had a year's worth of experience, joined in the Dynasty League, has really gone all for it. And now I think 2 of the guys who are playing in the Dynasty League have only got 2 years worth of experience, and they've taken over orphan squads and done brilliantly with them. So long may that continue. Finally, I won't talk about all the kind of side leagues and best balls, etc., that we were in, because they're basically just practice. Did pretty well in the Megala Bowl. Not too bad. I made the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, but that's a big competition. Go and listen to the Fancy Footballers. They do great content over there. But yeah, if you're listening to this, you probably already listened to them as well. They're a much more tight outfit than we have over here. But we had a really, really interesting league, and something I really want to talk about that we are going to roll forward next year as well. The Zombie League, Blood, Sweat, and Brains. This was a pet project of mine. I initially wanted to do a Vampire League to challenge myself more than anything, but Vampire is very, very vain, and it's very static as a league. In Vampire Leagues, you effectively take the role of vampire on. You don't draft a team, and you have to win through the waiver wire. You're the only person allowed to go on the waiver wire. You have ultimate rights, and if you win against someone, you take some of their players. You have to swap with them. So for everyone else who's got quite deep squads, typically they have to make sure that they play enough people to beat you, but not enough that they can take your stars potentially. And that's the strategy behind it. But realistically, it's one person playing against 11 people who've just drafted. Not as fun. Instead, we did a 12-team version of a Zombie League. Now, a Zombie League, similar kind of feel to that, with a bit more Eliminator / Guillotine vibes. But Eliminator and Guillotines, once you're out, you're out. What we wanted to have is a little bit of a redemption arc with that as well. So when you are the lowest scorer the first week, you become a zombie. If you get beaten by the zombie, it's everyone against everyone, battle royale style. So we don't have matchups per se, although the app tracks it. And if you're a zombie, you take over more zombies, and the job is survival. And at a point where it becomes a zombie majority, you can then gain back your humanity by beating the best when it comes to humans. It was a great league format, and it gave me an excuse to stretch my creative muscles a little bit. I wrote a Walking Dead style parody companion to this, and it was just good fun. I was able to write scenarios and pick on people's traits and who they'd played, etc., and be able to dig into that. And that for me was, I probably enjoyed doing that the most this season out of anything. I love doing the analysis on Dynasty, and we've created this franchise health index, which is something that we're going to be continuing on as a companion to Power Rankings, which John kindly delivers each week as well. writing up those snippets of how they survived, who killed who, and thinking of the scenarios and all the pastiches and all the genre tropes that we're dealing with there was really fun. And I really hope anyone listening to this who played in that league enjoyed it. But this is a league where I want to see it roll over and become bigger. Zombie. If you search, and I'll bring it up now. You won't be able to see this, but I'm going to see how many people, how many versions of this there are. If you search Zombie League Fantasy Football, there are few and far between. There's stuff here saying Zombie Leagues is the best new fantasy format, and it's been it's a new league format that's formulated into 2021. Talk about it being mixed between guillotine, etc. And it's really good fun. And they talk about how they do it on a small scale, etc. But it's not very popular. There are zombie leagues delivered by guillotineleagues.com, and they do that, but it's a buy-in league, etc. There's a public zombie league. You can play, but it's all not in-app and it's not very friendly. It's all text-based. It's not really suitable if you're a beginner. And what I wanted to do is bring that and bring a bit more friendly and personality to it. And we experimented with the format, and over time we realized using a fab format was great, but having to reduce it over time was difficult, and avoid people from getting disinterested. How can we bring them back? If they did well, we'll be able to give them back resources, etc. So we've added a couple more interesting things over the league, and we all went into this knowing it was a bit of an experimental league. But ultimately, we landed upon a set of rules which I think is going to work rolling forward. And the ending to it was great as well. I know. Sorry, I'm bouncing about a little bit. I want to carry it on next year, and we'll be doing with that new rule set. And it allowed us to have this great finale where, even though there was two humans in the end, it was myself and John, who I've mentioned before, who's been on the pod before as well. We were the last two remaining zombies, but I was able to write this epic where the zombies, ganged up on us basically and end up eliminating us in quite bloody fashion. But that was one of the outcomes. It was either one human gets out, two humans get out, or the zombies kill us all. And you know what? It's not always fairy tales, and the zombies killed us all. They did great. The surprises of week 17 got me. I had recently regained my humanity after being the longest standing human, so I didn't have much to work with. So I let the side down there, but John didn't win either. But it wasn't a case of everyone losing. It was a case of the zombies coming together and beating everyone. And big congratulations to Dan, to Ed, to Boz, Harry, Matt, and James, who all contributed to the annihilation of the human race there. We will be continuing this next year, and my hope is to have more divisions and more conferences in this, and be able to do it multiple times. I want to do it for a charity that is meaningful for me as well. So a lot of these type of leagues where you have to put a bit of effort into, and they're a bit for fun. The reason to do them is to give back as well. And I've been involved in a couple of leagues. Big shout out to the JTTC team as well. They do a great best ball league as well, which I'm going to be part of next year. I was in one of the satellite divisions. I didn't do great, but it was good to see everyone coming together. And I met some people through that who were involved in other leagues as well. Dan, who was his first ever draft, did really well in it and got to the conference final. So congratulations to him as well. It was those kind of things have these kind of $10 buy-ins. That's all you need, and all proceeds go to charity. And I'm looking to join up the Zombie League with a charity that I think is going to be worthy. So entry for that next year will be for a charitable cause. So if you're looking to get your fancy fix, have a bit of fun with it, maybe even join in. I would love some co-commissioners and people to support as well. I'm trying to work out a better way of managing it so it's less time consuming as well. But I want to give back as part of the fantasy community, I want to give back, and hopefully we're in a privileged position all to do so. We've got spare time to play fantasy. Hopefully we've got a bit of spare cash to give to a good cause. I'm open for suggestions, but I'm a big proponent for charities who deal with mental health. having struggled with some mental health issues myself in the past, I think it's a fantastic cause, and I want to have a worthy charity who is maybe a bit offbeat, or vulnerable children. As always, as a father, I'm always thinking of my kids, and again, how privileged a position we're in at the moment, and how some are not. So, not to land on a somber moment, but if you have any charity suggestions and would like to join the league, please message me. All details are down below. But the Zombie League was great fun, and it's something that we will roll on again. The final league, which came out of a bit of a drunken conversation that is going to be part of next year's plan, hasn't started yet, but will be starting immediately after the Super Bowl. In a bit of a chat with the guys about how managing fantasy football and how we expand the reach of what we do as well. Like, what about IDP? Actually, no, I didn't start like that. One of my friends, I'm going to credit Boz for this actually, suggested like, oh, can you play with individual defenses? Because we've taken defenses out of this and that. And I was like, oh, you're talking about IDP. It's not a format that I've ever done. Not a format that has interested me before because it seems too complicated. And he was like, yeah, it'd be fun if we could just play with individual defense players. I'd love to play with Aaron Donald. I'd love to play with Sauce Gardner. Okay, let's go and do it. And I was thinking about how we could do that without it just being an IDP league, because I want to push the boundaries. And I think my plan for this podcast is to have one experimental league each year, or one new experimental league each year. So I'm creating the RWP, Rugby with Pads, franchise mode league. It is a dynasty IDP team where you're going to have up to 53 players, so it looks like a proper roster. We are going to follow the league calendar, so waiver events only at certain time, trade deadlines only at certain times. I'm building out a system where we have contracts for players as well, 3 years being the max. You can franchise tag people, do X, Y, and Z against your budget, and work out how that's going to work. It's going to be all kinds of spreadsheets, and eventually I want to turn it into an app that you can track it on as well. And this is the next evolution that I want to talk about as well. But that is going to be opening up, and we're going to start drafting the initial veteran squad to build our teams around at the end of the Super Bowl. So, for me, the fantasy season will never stop because we're in a hiatus at the moment. We're going into the playoffs, and the end of the regular season, the postseason, and of course the Super Bowl. We will be jumping straight back onto that horse so we can continue to get our fix. If you have any interest in playing, again, please reach out to me. We have 11 people out of 12 currently. We are happy to extend this to 14 or 16 if needs be. It's going to be a whole mess, but if you're interested in doing something a bit silly and a bit fun, I think it could be a laugh. And being dynasty as well, it's probably less management of your rosters as such, but more management in the off season. So you get that balance all year round as well. We'll see how that goes, and that'll form a part of the pod next year as well. We'll do regular reporting on that. And that's where I want to get into my final topic today. It's been a bit of a stream of consciousness. I realise I haven't talked to you guys for a lot of time now, so I just wanted to talk at you for a little while. The pod next year, and I think something that I haven't been able to do well this year is be consistent. I came in with a vision for this year, and I wanted to do a Monday waivers show. I wanted to do a Thursday. Think about building a content, building a community here. Outside of the merch and just listening to the pod, etc. I wanted to build out something that I think I could be proud of, and I have. But is it going to grow to a global audience? Probably not. Is it going to grow to a micro audience? Yeah, and I want to get more people involved. And the kind of mission statement for this whole experience was to get more people interested in fantasy football, get more eyes on the screens. Get more eyes on the screen, that sounds horrible, but get more eyes on the game and have more people enjoying it. And there have been some interesting journeys I've had along the way. The Fantasy Game Day app guys were great, and I really enjoyed playing the DFS stuff, but it just added one too many things to me, and I felt like I got ill towards the start of December. Not seriously, guys, it was just a bit of flu. But I felt like I was a bit burnt out with this and work, and because I had this lofty ambition to have a Monday show, a Thursday show, and every other week a Saturday show. How do I fit that amongst two kids and a demanding job? yeah, it was very difficult to work out how I could fit all that in. So I think this next year I want to reduce it a little bit, reduce the manual effort a little bit more as well. Um, that doesn't mean producing worse content. That maybe just produces less content that is probably better. Um, I would love to have someone come along board as well to support me, not as an employee but as a contributor. You know, so someone who can bounce things off, because I realise that just talking to you guys is probably not the best audio, unless you love my voice. Then maybe, you know, or it sends you to sleep. Maybe it's great, but maybe it's not the best audio visual experience. Just having me on here, I want to get more people involved, and I'm exploring doing that as well. I'm actually doing podcasting through work as well. You know, I've used this as a bedding ground for my experience as well. But there are things that I want to be doing more of, and things I want to be doing less of. And I think less of is the amount of content. I want to get down to a succinct 35, 40-minute show, maybe 2 20 minutes, maybe a passion piece that I used to do last year, and you know, talking about the week ahead and interesting things. Maybe focus less on the stats, maybe focus more on the topics that interest me, but also give back occasionally to the leagues that I'm already doing stuff in. You know, rather than writing content that might land on no one's lap. I want to be able to have a section where we're just doing stuff for that league, and the leagues that I run, which are, you know, to promote the game that I really love playing, and that's the all the leagues I commission are to expand the league and to expand the game, sorry, and not to, you know, wall it off as well. So I want to make things a bit more accessible there. How I'm going to do that, I don't know, but I think I'm going to give myself less pressure. I'm going to be taking a little bit more time off from the pod, just gathering my thoughts. But aside from that, I do want to create some content outside of this audio visual medium as well. I want to be producing some things that I can give back to the community. I've loved this idea of the fancy health index, or the franchise health index. You know, the idea in my head is, how happy would fans of your team be? You know, how many titles have you won in the last 3 years, for example? How many X, Y, Z? And I want to create that, put that into a web app that you guys can put your league into and see how things go. And I got the idea from doing some of the playoff connotations towards the end of the season, and there were some great apps that I used, you know, the fancy playoff calculators, etc. That I just thought, well, why can't I do this? You know, it's an API pull from Sleeper or wherever it's going to be, and you know, input the data, and hey, here you go. And I've been exploring how to do that through various Google Sheets methods and putting it as a web app. So expect to see something like that, and that's what I'll be working on when I'm not working on the pod, in my free time. Not that I have a huge amount anyway. But just in general, I want to make sure I go back to the fundamentals. And during the off season, I will be doing a fancy 103. I will be doing a draft 103, you know, evolving upon those topics. I'll be talking about new leagues. I'll be making sure that they've got new invites. I will be updating a little bit on things that I found interesting. I will be less driven to a content calendar and more driven to things that I find are interesting because I think they're better quality. So you'll see a bit of a change up there, and maybe just a little bit less pressure on me. I think the content grind, even though I don't have a huge amount of followers, you know, this reaches 30, 40 people at a maximum on any given basis. So yeah, we'll have to see how things turn out next year. But you know, I'm not doing this for the applaud. I'm not doing this for money. I'm just doing this because I really enjoy it, and you know what, it gives me a good chance to get people nice merch out as well. I don't make any money on this kind of stuff either. It's all print to order, so it's expensive. But if you'd like to support the pod, it was so minute, it might pay the hosting bills for the pod as well. So you can support on all the usual links. You know where it is, rugbypads.com. You can find everything there. But yeah, that's what to expect from me moving forward. More of the same, but less of the same. As in, more of the same kind of stuff you love, less of the kind of stuff that's filler, hopefully, and a bit more honesty when I'm feeling like I can't deliver upon it. I might maybe just be a bit more communicative with my audience as well, which I hope I haven't alienated any of you by not being about for the last few weeks. But with that, I'm going to wrap up. It's bringing us to a neat 40 minutes on my OBS timer here. I really appreciate you listening if you've listened this far. If you haven't, I completely get it, because it's week 18. You know, there's nothing to play for, and you should not be playing in week 18. Tell all your commissioners, do not let me play in week 18. Do not let them play in week 18. Take it upon yourselves to stage a coup if they even think about it. But anyway, thank you all for listening. And last time this regular fantasy season, oh, you know what? I'm going to say it again anyway, because I'm probably going to do something about the Super Bowl anyway. And I'll probably I'd love to do a fancy Pro Bowl again. I love doing that, and the fancy awards once more. But yeah, thank you all for listening this far, and I will see you soon on the Virtual Gridiron.